Hi guys, in this video I wanted to do a bit of an update on these three planted tanks which I have in here. And well, I've showed you all of these tanks before, but it was really long time ago, and I showed you this particular Echinodorus argentinensis quite often in two previous videos, so I'm not going to talk specifically about this plant, although it's obviously is an elephant in the room, but I will talk about the population of this fish tank. And so to start with, these three tanks are my Ikea tanks. And what I mean by Ikea tanks, they definitely were not purchased at Ikea, but they were made from shelf glasses from Ikea. And I'm quite happy with the quality of the glass. It's a tempered glass, and it's relatively decent quality glass that produces good fish tanks. So we'll start with this fish tank here. You've seen this fish tank before when I first set it up as a biotop style Myanmar aquarium for celestial pearl danios or CPDs. It also has several pandagaras, and well, in terms of other, well, you can see one pandagara in the back. They like to hang out on sponge filters. And it also has quite a collection of Neocaridina shrimp. You can see one of them in here. They're different colors. I would say they're kind of a Skittles rather than a single color variant. There are also a few Amana shrimps. I see them rarely, so I'm not sure how they're doing. So when it comes to CPDs, they're actually quite well adapted to this fish tank, and they're breeding in here because there are a few juveniles hanging around. I've seen some really small fry, and the reason I think why they're thriving and they're breeding in here is primarily because of all this moss which I have in here. These are mostly Taiwan moss, thread moss, and flame moss. So it's a mixture of several of these longer stem mosses, and it's a huge clump of moss in this front part of the tank, and that's where I think they spawn, and that's where juveniles are hiding when they're small, and they eventually find various types of foods in here. So CPGs are definitely having the time of their lives in this fish tank. It is an unheated room temperature setup. I don't have a heater here. I have a sponge filter in the back, mostly because of pandagaras, because they need a bit of flow, and normally I have more flow in here, but I sort of reduced it now for filming because it gets a bit too loud. So in terms of plants, you can see here I have, apart from mosses, I have Elodia densa, which is this plant, and plant over there. It grows like wild, so I have to prune it all the time. I try to keep on top of it, but it's still growing really fast. It also has Hydrocatile tripartita in here and in the back. Well, because it doesn't grow as fast in this tank as mosses grow, so it always sort of overshadowed by the moss. And this tank, it has really thin layer of gravel in front, but in the back it has quite a thick layer of gravel. You can see here there's a lot of substrate in the back. That's all substrate. I have some pond fertilizers in that substrate. Yeah, the layer of substrate in here. And I have here some giant Sagittaria. I can't remember the Latin name. I think it's Sagittaria. Well, no, I better not. So I have here some giant Sag, but they don't really grow much for me. They're doing okay, but I guess they don't get enough light, so they're not thriving in here despite all the fertilizers that I have in substrate. So this tank is quite stable. I would say it's well settled, and there's not much happening, obviously. apart from some occasional breeding from CPDs, and shrimp are breeding here as well. This tank mostly stays at about 20 degrees Celsius, sometimes goes down to 18 degrees Celsius, but it's a room temperature, so it's not gonna go lower than this temperature wise. Alright, moving on to this tank in here. I will not be talking about the Echinodorus, but every other plant in this tank are basically offspring of this mother plant. Or you can see lots of different Amazon sword plants. These are all juvenile Echinodorus argentinensis plants, which originated from this mother plant. When it comes to fish, I have here some of pencilfish, Beckfordi pencilfish, Nanostomus beckfordi. Most of them were bred by myself, and they're not very active. Most of the time they hide, and you can't really see them around. The two other fish that I have in here are dwarf gouramis. Yeah, I know they don't quite fit in here, but that was pretty much an impulse purchase. I saw them at our local pets at home, and they didn't look very happy in there, so I had to save them. And they were also a very unusual common variety of dwarf gourami, so they're not one of those bright orange or bright blue variants, and there's something that you would see like 20 years ago or 15 years ago, and you would hardly find nowadays. So they're wild form. They are not very brave either. I'm trying to see if I can find any of them, but no, actually that's not likely to happen. But male is constantly building this bubble nest in the back. You can see it's right there, so probably they're spawning and probably they're doing good, but because they're adults, they're a bit skittish and nervous, so I don't see them very often, but they're definitely in there. Well, I would probably guess that this sort of setup with lots of emerged plants and relatively low water level is perfect for labyrinth fish and all the fish that live in this sort of environments. So I guess the dwarf gouramis are happy in here. I have a heater in here to keep the temperature at about 25 degrees Celsius. Obviously this is an open top tank, so in winter the air temperature in this room will go down to about 18 degrees, maybe 17 degrees. That might be a problem for dwarf gouramis because they breathe atmospheric air, but I will probably consider moving them to my fish room when time comes. But for now, I'll keep them in here. So, and the last tank in here, really difficult to film because of all the glare and reflection. So this tank basically holds most of the fish, well, not most, but some of the fish I had in my paludarium. So it has my breeding group of Haplysoma duplicareus or Corydoros duplicareus. It has a bunch of cardinal tetra's, some Beckfordi pencilfish, and some marginatus pencilfish, so Nanostomus marginatus or dwarf pencilfish. So quite a selection of this nano fish. Well, cardinal tetra's are definitely not nano, they're quite chunky jumbo cardinals, but there are very few of them. They're actually very old. Some of them are as old as 4 years old, some of them are 3 years old. I think the youngest are 3 years old. In terms of plants, I have here some dwarf such, some red lotus nymphaea, or tiger lotus nymphaea, tiger lily, whatever you want to call them. So it's a nymphaea species, and it's, well, sort of doing okay, but the plants that are certainly thriving in here are Ludwigia, the common Ludwigia, which you can see in here, and some Bacopa caroliniana, which is in the back. I don't think you can see it, but it's in the back. Both of them are stem plants, and currently I would say Ludwigia is a dominant plant in here. It's definitely feeling great in this system. Oh, this is one of the Ikea stickers on the glass. And the annoying part about the stickers is that it's really hard to get them removed from the glass. and I've tried a few things and it just doesn't come off, and I left it eventually wherever. So yeah, this tank is mostly South American nano fish, and to be honest, I'm not entirely happy with the way it looks like, with the way it looks at the moment in terms of plants. So I'm thinking to make it a black water setup with exactly the same population, because they're pretty much from the same biotope, and they would thrive in black water. But I'm not entirely sure. I'm still sort of feeling good about this Ludwigia, which is growing really nicely with all these red leaves. There's no CO2 in either of these tanks, and I add some general fertilizer, basically a mix of macro and micro, to all three of these tanks, but that is it. And this tank also has some potting mix at the bottom, beyond, well, below the layer of sand. I don't know if an Nymphea is enjoying this layer of nutritious substrate below. It might be, but Ludwigia definitely doesn't care about all those things. So that's really short video about what I have in these three tanks. They're quite nice and quite enjoyable to watch. Especially the CPG tank, because there's a lot of activities there all the time. These guys are a bit more shy and a bit more relaxed, but well, yeah, I'm really thinking about making this tank a black water tank. So I hope you liked this brief update, and please leave your comments in the comment section, and I'll see you soon in further videos.